Hi kindergarten families, we're so excited because we've been working hard to put together some resources for you to use at home for your kindergartners to learn their letters and sounds. They're called the reading bags and we put them together with materials. We're asking that you use these materials each night to practice letters and sounds and keep the materials together in this bag so they're all safe and sound. We will be asking for them back at some point later in the year, so keeping them all together so we can have them back would be great. I'm just going to give you a quick peek and then we'll go through the things in each bag. Each bag will have a reading folder, and again it just asks you to keep things organized and together. Inside there's some directions which we're going to go over, some things tucked in here, and a magnet board with some letters for the students. So let's talk about each thing and how we're going to use them. First thing we're going to talk about is our Fundation sound cards and standard cards. This year, kindergarten is working with letters and sounds using a program called Fundations. Throughout the letter, you'll see that sometimes there's markings that look like this, and when we use those markings, it's talking about the sound of the letter rather than the name. So we have two kinds of cards. We have the sound cards, which are the pictures that have the cards that have the letter and the picture, the keyword. And then we have the standard cards, which are just the lowercase letters. We've been working on all the letters with our sound cards, so it would be great if each night you could just go through and have the kids say, Y, yellow, yeah, X, fox, X, and they know the drill. They're great with those. The standard cards, on the other hand, we've highlighted here in bold the letters that we've worked on so far, and obviously each week they're adding to that. But with these cards, it would be great if you just stuck to the letters that they've learned so far. So the next section says some additional ways to use these cards other than just flipping through and doing a little drill with the kids. So the first one is memory. Just like other memory games that you play at home, you can lay out a certain number of the sound cards and a certain number of the standard cards, and then take turns trying to find the match. And as they turn it over, you can encourage the child to say, Z, zebra, Z, U, up, not a match. And then play will continue. You can take a turn. Kind of always have the child be the one naming the letter and the sound. D, dog, D. S, snakes. Mrs. Dempsey thought she had a match here. Okay, so then eventually they'll make their match. Y, yellow, yeah. Y, yellow, yeah. And then they can take their match and play can continue. It's called I Have, Who Has. So the cards are in the middle. The next player pulls the next card, says who has the U, and every player has to look in their hand, and whoever has the U says I have the U, U up, and then they make a pair and they get to keep it. And then the next friend would go, who has the H, and whichever friend has it finds it and makes a pair, and you keep going until you've made all the pairs and the cards are out. Another game is capital lowercase search. So to play this game, you would line up a few of the lowercase letters, and then you could cover up the lowercase letter and say, can you find the lowercase letter that matches this? And have your child pick the lowercase letter and make a match, and then they can say E, ed, and then they can keep that pair. And then you would keep going until you've made all the matches. Next, we gave directions for the game Go Fish, but just playing with our letter cards. So if I'm the first player, so first of all, the players, deal out the cards with the matching pairs. You can limit it to not using the whole deck of cards. First, the friend should look in their hand and see if they have any matches, and they can put them down together if they do. If not, decide who's going first and say, who has a Z? And everybody looks in their thing. Someone else has a Z, they give it to me, and I put it down and I've made a match. And now it's their turn. Who has an E? They put it together and make a match. If the next friend says, does anyone have a A? And no one does, and then they say, go fish, and they pick something from the pile, and if they make a match, they can put it down. And play continues until all the cards are gone, and whoever has the most matches wins. The next thing in our reading bag is the Fundation's letter keyword chart. So it should be inside the folder, and it looks like this. It has all of our letters and the key sounds. So for one, you could have your child sing the ABC song, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and have them point as they go. You could also say, just while you're cooking dinner or sitting in the kitchen or wherever you are on the go, in the car, say, can you point to the letter J? Can you point to the letter N? If you want to make it a little bit easier, you could start like, let's start in the first row and find a letter in the first row. Eventually, they'll be able to do the whole alphabet. You could also do the same idea. Let's look at the third row and let's find the letter that makes the sound. Let's find the letter that makes the qu sound. Let's find the letter that makes the s sound. You could also do, what's the first sound? Okay, so let's look at the last row. What's the first sound you hear in tire? T. Good. What's the first sound you hear in wind? W. Good. So you can do lots of little things with that. You could also, once you want to get really tricky, you could do the same thing but with the end sound. So let's look at the first row. What's the last sound you hear in the word job? Oh, I hear the B. Things like that. So lots of different things you can do with this. The next thing in the bag is the Foundation's letter formation grid. So we took a big piece of paper that we're using for letter formation and laminated it so you could practice at home. We suggest that you can use this letter keyword chart so that you can see where the letters start, where they end, and how they sit. So the terms that we use at the school are the skyline, the plane line, the grass line, and the worm line. So you could say something like, today we're going to practice the letter F. I see the letter F, and we're focusing on lowercase letters right now. I see the F starts on the skyline and loops down to the grass line. And then we cross it on the plane line. Okay, so you can use words like that. And then you can use a tissue or a sock or whatever you have at home to erase. And then you can try another one. If they need a couple practices with the same letter, that's fine. If they need some little reminders, let's say they're making the J and they don't quite get to the worm line, just give some little reminders, stretch it all the way down to the worm line on the next one and try a couple more practicing that way. The tricky letters as far as forming are like the A and the D, where you start here and you have to go way out and around and reach the bottom line. So we've been working on that, but continue to encourage them to stretch all the way around for those letters. So the next thing in our bag is the Foundation's Val Extension Poster, and the goal of this is really to get the kids to learn the short vowel sounds. So they're used to this. They're going to put their finger on the vowel and say A, apple, a, E, ed, I, itch, O, octopus, U, up, and just practice the sounds. You can do that once a night, a couple times a night. That's great practice. Also in each bag, we've made magnetic boards with magnetic letters. Some of them are not perfect because we were working with what we had left, but all of them have all of the whole alphabet in there. And we did put them in this Ziploc bag just so that when you're storing them in the reading bag, if they fall off, they're still all kept contained. So we thought that would be a nice way to keep them. One thing that you can do is just ask your child, again, you can focus on just one row at a time, or you can do the whole alphabet once they're ready. Just say something like, bring down the S, bring down the N. And then after they have the whole row down, you can say, put the N back up, put the S back up. Okay, you can also do the same thing with sound, like look in the first row and find the letter that makes the K sound and bring it down. Look in the first row and find the letter that makes the F sound and bring it down. And then do the same thing on the way up. What letter makes the K sound? What letter makes the F sound? You could do the same thing with, what does it start with? Find a letter in the end that is the start of the word violin, and they can bring it down. What's the sound that you hear at the beginning of zoo? And they can bring it down. And then same thing on the way up. Okay, what's the beginning of zipper? What's the beginning of vine? We also came up with some fun ways that you can use other things. So for instance, you could get a spoon out and a bowl and say, let's make alphabet soup. I'll tell you what to put in. Let's put in an S. Let's put in the sound you hear at the beginning of peas. Let's put in the sound that you hear at the beginning of monkey. And you can drop all them in, stir them up, and then up. Let's take them out of the soup. Take out the M. Take out what you hear at the beginning of soup. Take out what you hear at the beginning of potato. And they can put them back. You also could do something fun like feed your pet. You have to feed your pet. I played this today with my kindergartners. That pig is so hungry. He needs a Z to eat. Give him a Z. He needs a W to eat. He needs the letter that you hear at the beginning of umbrella. And then do the same thing on the way back. He's tired of the sound. He's tired of the Z sound. He's tired of the W sound. And you can put them back. You could also find animals, things, anything around the house, and tell friends, let's listen to the beginning sound and line them up. So what's at the beginning of zebra? And have them line up the sound. What's at the beginning of dog? What's at the beginning of pig? What's at the beginning of snake? What's at the beginning of monkey? And then you could say, put back the P, put back the D, and keep going till all the letters are back. So lots of fun ways to play with these magnet letters. The next little section is just about concepts of print. So mostly what we're doing right now with kindergartners is focused on letters and sounds, but as you're reading at home, you can point out some of these things, and eventually as they start reading beginning books, you can start working on some of that. So real simple things like how we handle books, we hold them, facing the right way that we turn the pages, that as you read, you point under the words. You can start talking about things in books like who's in the book and what's happening in the book, retell some events from the book. So there's just some little tips about, good conversation that you can have based on you reading to your kids at home and then eventually them starting to read beginning books. The last thing in the folder talks about phonemic awareness. Phonemic awareness is the ability to hear and manipulate sounds, and this is a really important step to beginning reading. It gives you examples, rhyming, sound matching, syllable counting of sort of each part of phonemic awareness and some little ideas of ways that you can play around with those sounds. These are all really spelled out, so I think they're pretty clear, but they're fun, short little ways that you can do things in the car, on the go, as you make dinner, as they're getting ready for bed. So we're hoping that you'll find these useful for some little ways to play with words at home.